Fala galera, beleza? Esse é Tchockozzo. Estamos aqui no pé da estrada com o Tchockozzo, com a Tchockozza, aqui em Tucson, no Arizona. A gente está entrando aqui num passeio turístico no deserto de Boneyard. Olha aí, isso aqui é um cemitério de aviões militares, o maior do mundo.
About a year ago because they had a pocket fire that destroyed one, so it was easier to regenerate one out of here. We keep track of their bombers and they keep track of ours. So those are all nuclear capable or they're conventional capable. The main armament other than conventional bombs is the cruise missile. They can carry 20 cruise missiles, either nuclear or conventional cruise missiles. The one that we're going to see first when we turn into the Celebrity Roll is the actual one that Boeing took back and did some testing with over the Rocky Mountains, and they lost the vertical tail. It sheared right off because of a mountain wave. They flew it around for about 4 hours using differential power and managed to land it at Whiteford Air Force Base back there in the 60s. Basically differential power. Obviously it has a new tail on it now. Okay, we're coming through another gate here. If you put your cameras down for just a second. Sometimes this guy doesn't even come out. Yep, he's out. Anyway, he's right on there. Okay, we're going to turn left down what we call Celebrity Row, about 60 airframes down through here. Most of them representative of what's being stored in here right now, so you can get a little closer look. In some cases, a couple unique airplanes. Talked about the B-52 on the left over here already. Again, an H model. Oh, guess what's missing? You didn't tell me, Jerry. Yeah, see, Jerry usually tells me. We have 2 stealth airplanes now. We had a great big old VIP airplane here, a KC-135 that took the PACAF, Commander PACAF around, and they have a big, you're going to see some airplanes that have a D on it. That's kind of like having your D mark, make sure you operate on the correct D. So the guys will come out with the correct D on the airplane if they want it demilitarized. Once it gets demilitarized, it gets a big red X through it, and then that tells them they can sell it for scrap. In case of big airplanes, which we thought we'd get to see this one busted up right here, you get to see them busting it up. Okay, again, B-52 over here on the left, talked about that. Next coming up is the B-1 bomber, the Bone. Nicknamed the Bone for B-1. This is the $283 million Mach 2 bomber that President Carter said we're not paying $283 million for anything. So he canceled the program back in the 70s. When President Reagan started building the military back up, he said, yes, we are. We're going to build about 100 some of these B-1 Lancers. Now we're down to about 60 some of these. We're still using. They've been denuked. They can no longer count towards our nuclear capability, and they can't even carry nukes anymore. They have been flying a couple of them through South Korea there, if you notice. This is a show of force the last few days, but they're not nuclear capable. Now they slowed down to about Mach 1.2, and they can actually carry 84 500-pound conventional bombs, either the GPS guided or laser guided up in that bomb bay. And they're all reprogrammable in flight. And you notice me looking around a lot because just like what happened there, between one day and another, I just did this tour on Monday, they move airplanes on us. And the Navy's really good at moving airplanes for some reason. I guess they like to confuse us Air Force guys. Over here on the other side is a Navy airplane on the right over here, a T-1 Sea Star, based on the F-80 Shooting Star, T-33 T-Bird fame of the Air Force, but a Navy version. Had a tailhook that was an early jet trainer for the Navy back there in the 50s. Jerry's going to stop for just a second from the largest airplane America's ever had. It's number 5 on the big list of airplanes now in the world. The C-5A Galaxy. How many landing gear down there? Well, I'm not going to sit here while you count, but there's 28 of them. Why 28? So it can distribute the 840,000 pounds this airplane can weigh. Now again, I can't convert to kilograms, you have to do that yourself. 840,000 pounds is the capability of this big airplane. We're going to keep about out of the 120 or some we had. We've shredded some already, we crashed some. We're going to keep 52 of them, I believe, 52 or 54, and they're going to be converted to the C5M, the C5 Mike model. Beefed up wings, bigger engines, glass cockpit. So those 50 some will be around. The rest of them have been pretty much put in storage here the last couple of years. Great YouTube video that shows how that nose cracks open up over the top of the cockpit. Big ramp folds out the front. Ramp can come out the back. It can squat down. Basically, if it's empty, the enlisted guys play football down through the middle of there. That's how big it is. Great airplane, great capability. So it'll be around for a while, the modified ones. They're all being taken back to the factory down in Georgia to be modified. Over here on the right, we've got a T-46 prototype. That was supposed to be a replacement for the T-37 Tweet. It's 2 airplanes down. The Air Force did not like it, so they never bought it. They stuck with the Tweet for about 20 more years, and now the Tweet's been replaced. Next little black airplane there is usually called the White Rocket. It's our first supersonic trainer that our pilot training guys go through. And guess what? It's over 50 years also. So all of us that went through pilot training in the last 50 years also flew the T-38 as our first supersonic trainer. They're just now talking about a TX to replace the T-38. This is painted black because it was used to chase U-2s and SR-71s out of Beale Air Force Base. I also flew the fighter version of that called the F-5. That's coming up, the T-37 Tweak, little side-by-side primary trainer. Again, for over 50 years, all of us that used the Tweak early on have some hearing loss, because that's also called the 5,000-pound dog whistle. Back there in the late 60s, early 70s, they didn't seem to worry too much about hearing protection. Great little primary airplane now. Next on the right, C-145 Sky Truck is a little utility aircraft, painted kind of in civilian colors, so it wouldn't stick out quite so much because it was used to kind of insert special forces and things like that into small operating fields around the world. Next over here on the other side is an E-8 Joint Stars. Whenever we flew over Iraq, especially either northern or southern Iraq, and if we were going to drop bombs, so basically we wanted to talk to this guy because he had a big radar underneath. There was a side-looking radar, and he could help make sure you knew where the friendlies were and where the bad guys were. And of course, we were always talking to the AWACS airplane, which I'll point out on the other side. This paint your air-to-air picture and tells you if Saddam had any fighters flying. Next, coming up on the other side, C-20. Maybe you were a CEO of a corporation. You flew around in the Gulfstream 3. This is nothing but a civilian Gulfstream 3 used by the military. It was actually used by the presidential fleet. Back in 2013, when we went through the big sequestering budget cut thing here in America, we parked 3 of these here at Livonia. Next is the P-2 Neptune, the oldest airplane here. And all the Neptunes have been either put in museums or shredded. This one actually has been assigned to the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. if they ever decide to come and take it out of here. Very old patrol airplane. Anything that starts with a P means it had a patrol mission. Too big to fly off of aircraft carriers, so the Navy always deployed these for their fixed bases. Big old clunky radar to look for submarines there. It could carry depth charges. It could also carry torpedoes, the conventional tip torpedoes. Its successor, the P-3s coming up, could actually carry nuclear tip torpedoes.
Será que o cara entende?
The first NP-3 here is a special version of the P-3 Orion. Big funny tail on there. That big appendage on the tail is a SLAR, which is a side-looking radar, and the Navy used this version of their airplane for a lot of testing out in the Pacific to track rocket, missile, and sometimes even satellite re-entries into the Pacific ranges. The next version coming up, the P-3 Orion, is a straight patrol version, again, which can carry nuclear tip torpedoes, so it can pretty much engage submarines on its own. It also does a lot of surveillance and looking around for things. If you looked at any of that film footage on TV, if you were looking for the Egyptian flight that disappeared in the Mediterranean, or out there in the Pacific Ocean looking for basically the Malaysia Flight 370, a lot of that film footage was taken from inside an Australian P-3 out there in the Pacific and from inside the American P-3 there in the Mediterranean. So it's used a lot for more than just military purposes. Okay, we already saw one stealth airplane, and I was on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I lost my case of 3D anti-stealth sunglasses that I used to sell for $5. We have a saying here in America, if you fall for something like that, I also have some land in Florida for you. But anyways, here's the F-117 stealth fighter over here on the right. Very stealthy. If you squint real hard, you might be able to envision all those funny black angles on the nose. And then the twin tails coming up. We'd love to have one here because they're all gone. They've been gone for a while. That generation of stealth fighter is pretty well obsolete. But that stealthy skin cannot take this kind of composite stealthy skin, can't take this kind of sunlight.
O F-117 é um avião invisível de radar. Falando, aqui no nosso direito temos o F-117, que é o Stealth Fighter, né, que é um caça invisíveis no radar, mas ele aqui, ó, sobrou dele. Ele é tão invisível que você não consegue enxergar nenhum avião, só os pneus.
See a yellow star in the intake means that particular airplane had a big kill in Vietnam. I'll talk a little bit more about F-4s when we get down the road. Next airplane here on the right will be an A-7 Corsair II. This is the type of airplane I started my career on, although it was painted in Air Force paint scheme, camouflage. These were the D models. The E model here was based basically on the D model because the Navy liked our D model so well. They adopted the E model. That little airplane could carry 3 times the payload of a B-17 in World War II. and it was highly accurate with this computer system. For 60s technology, you could almost drive nails, drop a bomb from the airplane. Matter of fact, if you asked me to drop a stupid bomb, a 500 pound, no laser guidance, no GPS guidance, I'd do it with that airplane before I would a brand new F-16. That's how accurate it was. Notice that over here, T-43 Boeing Gator. This is nothing but a Boeing 737 turned into a Boeing Gator. What's a Gator? Well, it's used to train navigators. They had about 14 stations in the back and a couple instructor stations to train navigators. Unfortunately, we don't use too many of those guys now because it was easier to put in a little black box about that big, about that big, about that big called, GPS. So we don't train too many navigators. If we do, the Navy does it for us. Next, coming up on the right, A3 Sky Warrior, nicknamed the Whale by the Navy because it was the biggest thing that flew off of carriers for a long time. In the Air Force, we would call this a strategic bomber because the Navy basically had the capability of carrying nukes off the carriers with the A3 Sky Warrior. He ended up his career as a tanker. DC-9 over there, this is the Navy had a tendency to buy those airlines, convert them to a use. The DC-9 here was an airliner they bought, cut a door on the side of it to put cargo in, and they had a fleet of DC-9s to haul Navy personnel all over the country and all over the world. Now the Air Force and Navy both bought straight C-9s that were called C-9 Nightingales, and they were used for many years to haul medical patients all over the world. All the C-9s and DC-9s are now retired. Next, coming up on the right, A6 Intruder. Maybe you've read the book or watched the movie Flight of the Intruder starring Danny Glover. A real workhorse for the Navy. Basically, that attack aircraft, bomber attack aircraft, carried 4 times the ordnance of the B-17 in World War II. That Grapeville white nose hides what we call good ground mapping radar, which means it's really good for finding targets at night in the weather. So we used a lot in Vietnam when the weather was bad or at night, and sometimes it acted as a pathfinder to bring in other airplanes that didn't have that capability. Again, used all the way up through Desert Storm. Another Navy airplane bought as a commercial airliner was DC-8, converted to an DC-24, looked under the nose, a long pod there. That's a jamming pod. That was used to simulate Soviet jamming of our radios and radars when the Navy conducted big exercises. They could add that into the training picture. But now that's all done digitally, so they don't need an airplane to do it. Here's an F-15. As a F-16 guy, whenever we trained against these guys, we usually trained against the light rays. So we can kind of designate whether we're fighting light rays or dark rays. Dark ray guys like this is a strike eagle. We have the ground version of drops bombs, laser guided GPS. So they were like us and kind of had to be able to do everything, including air-to-air. Now the light rays, they had one mission in life. Strike, or the regular eagles had one mission that was air-to-air only. So if you wanted the best training in the world, you wanted to fight against the light rays. The kill ratio of the light rays against enemy aircraft is 102 to nothing. We never lost a light